Now.
I'm just saying, I'm just going to do a quick intro for everyone.
Okay.
Yep. So, welcome back, everyone. So we're going to kick off with our second speaker, and I'm very, very, very excited. Because our second speaker is Future Coders Karen Scott. She's also actually the woman that taught me how to code when I was back in college.
Me too.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's a huge honour to have her speaking to me. So you'll be giving a talk for us on what's it like a microservice focused project from an inexperienced team. So away you go.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Okay. Right. So thanks ever so much to Aaron for that really brilliant talk. I really enjoyed that, and thank you, Alex, for inviting me on tonight. So I'm going to talk about what's it like, and I'll just put that into context. As Alex said, I run a company called Future Coders, and I'm going to move on so that you can see that. Oh, okay. I run a company called Future Coders. Our kind of a mission, having taught for 25 years, and previous to that being a software developer for a few years, I was really concerned about the difficulty that young people have coming out of education and going into work, especially in software development, which something that kind of you could see it over the years. It just become more and more difficult and more unlikely that they would go straight from school or college into work, and that university seemed to be the only option. So I started Future Coders to start up a work experience program, and the idea was to try to bridge that gap between school and work by putting together a project that was as light work as it could possibly be, but had some learning in it, and allowed young people to kind of ease themselves into a way of working in a team, getting those communication skills, and getting a bit of an idea of what it really was like to be working in that environment. Having started it, and I don't know how naive I was, I hadn't really realised that there was very little programming being taught in schools as a whole, because I'd always taught it. I didn't realise necessarily that I was in a vacuum. So there was a real lack of young people with programming skills who weren't kind of, you either had the very, very technical ones, the kind of the bedroom coders, or people hadn't even heard of it. And so we started branching out, and we're running school and community workshops. We're starting to run traineeship style programs with unemployed, to try to kind of find those people that have got these skills but have never just had an opportunity to learn. And then the idea was to try to kind of get young people ready to become really good apprentices, so that they can become a lower risk to a company that wants to take on an apprentice that's thinking about that. You know, you've got somebody who's shown that they're really keen, who has got skills, who's actually been in a project team, knows that this is what they want to do. They're not going to leave you in 6 months. They know that this is what they want to do. So that was the kind of the thinking. I also found through the work of Future Coders that there were no software development technician apprenticeships, so level 3 apprenticeships, available from any training provider in Kent, as far as we knew. So we're starting to work in that field as well. So the main thing that we do is this work experience program, and the idea is that we find apps that people kind of need or want, mostly socially purposeful apps, so apps for charities, apps for community groups, and when we've got an app, we bring together a team and we try to develop that app. If you just give an app idea to a group of students, you probably won't get anything out at the other end, however good at programming they are, because they don't have those team skills, the management skills, to get that all together. And so we are bringing professionals to work with the students. Maggie has been volunteering with us almost since we started, and she's absolutely brilliant. She's always there, and she's a really good mentor for the students. And we've been lucky enough to have Alex on our last project, working on the front end. So what she was doing was putting together the work the students were doing. So I'm going to talk about what's it like, and the idea. Sorry, my cat's jumping all over me. The idea really is to talk about the architecture and the decisions and why I made those decisions about the architecture. So my role in a project generally tends to be the kind of the solutions architect and the training lead. So my role is to identify what students can do and identify things that we think that they can achieve in that project. So this one was called What's It Like? It came from PALS Society. PALS is People with Alternative Learning Styles. It's an autism charity based in Hampshire. They wanted to create a content system, kind of an app that could deliver content to people with anxiety and autism who were finding barriers to go and to do the things that they wanted to do because they knew that they wouldn't be able to cope with that particular situation. So the idea was through video experiences, virtual tours, virtual reality, augmented reality, and a set of those experiences, they could become familiar with that venue or that situation and therefore get the confidence to know what to expect and how they might deal with it when they get there. So that was the premise behind the app. What I do when I've got an app like that to make, and we've made others so we've done an art-based app that was a conversation app between the artist and their viewer. We've done digital annual reports. We've done other content management type stuff. Whenever I've got an app to develop, I try to scope it so that it will be something that's possible to develop in around about 150 hours with a team that consists of 4 to 6 students, some volunteer developers, a lead developer, or 1 lead developer, possibly 2 lead developers, depending on the size of the project, and then myself as a training lead. So I'm kind of that person that sits in between the development side and the education side to make sure that everyone's got something purposeful to do. We bring the team together and we work in office space so that the kids are not in school. We're not going into them, they're coming to us. They're not working remotely. They do actually have to travel to us, and we pay their travelling expenses to make sure they get there. So that's kind of how the projects work. This particular project, the What's It Like app, so it needed to be able to deliver content, and you needed to have that content managed. In terms of the requirements, Steve, who is it's his charity, he knew that he wanted this system. He just didn't really have a clue what he wanted or how it would work, or where it would be hosted or what, and so he left that completely to me. In terms of the requirements, the requirements that I felt that we should have right from the start, we wanted something that's uncoupled as far as possible. So I wanted to make sure that the content delivery for the user, who is a user that's got anxiety issues and needs something that will be fairly dependable, that's uncoupled from the system that's the back managing the content, putting the content on there, making sure that it's available, that sort of thing. This is a kind of a system that's supported, so the user at the front has their content set up for them rather than them going and choosing the content themselves. So they don't really have too much control over what they do with the content, but I'll show you what they do in a bit. So being uncoupled, I wanted to be in the situation where if the back end, that back office stopped working, it's not going to affect the front end, that front end will carry on working. Because of our working model, we need to make sure that we're not needing to be on hand for maintenance all the time. We need to make sure that we've got a bit of time to kind of spin up another project team if we've got something major to do. So uncoupled systems was one. We're using AWS cloud hosting. We've been doing that for the last 2.5 years, hosting stuff on AWS. They were very kind and gave us quite a lot of credits a while ago. I haven't actually managed to apply for any more. We ran out of credits halfway through this system, which it drove home to me how expensive it can be quite quickly. So we're kind of looking at different options. But the other thing that needs to be is very, very modular. We've got young people who are not used to working on projects. We want to make sure that in that very short time span, they're able to learn what they need to learn and that they are able to be given something that's purposeful. And the only way we can give them things that are purposeful is making them very clear, fairly simple, although these are really good programmers often that we're working with, but very in small modules. So that's kind of the ask for any project. We generally program in Python and in JavaScript, and we don't encourage or sort of require, let's go back, require the students to learn anything about React or Django, which are the two frameworks that we've been using, because I've always felt that wasn't really that useful to them. The Python and JavaScript are transferable skills. They can transfer to lots of different frameworks, but learning a framework where you may go off and work with a different framework isn't necessarily that useful. So this, I thought I'd show you the architecture of where we are at the moment. So this is what we've built so far. It's based around a Postgres database, which is hosted on AWS, the RDS platform on AWS. The content descriptions and all the information about the content is stored in that database, and both the back office and the front end app will be using that. All of the content is hosted in an S3 bucket on AWS, and everything in the app is accessed through an endpoint to that particular item in the S3 bucket. So it doesn't come through the Django app. It's not delivered to the app necessarily through the APIs. The only thing that comes to the app through the APIs is the link to the content in the S3 bucket. So it's kind of treated as external content. We've got a React app hosted in an S3 bucket, that's the app itself. And that talks to a set of APIs hosted on the API gateway, again on AWS. And each of those APIs has a Lambda function sitting behind it. And those Lambda functions are the sorts of things that a student can write. They can write a function that will go and grab a bit of data from the database, package it up, format it into the right format, and send it out through the API gateway to the app. So we've got we're using AWS Lambda for our functions that are sitting behind that gateway, and then on the other side, the management side, which is really the content management system, that's been built as a Django app, and that's hosted on Elastic Beanstalk. So that's kind of that's there. It does everything that it needs to do. It's not a pretty looking app, but it does do everything that it needs to do. Other AWS services that we've used CloudFront, Route 53, and AWS Certificate Manager in order to just set up SSL and to organise the DNS and all that sort of stuff. At the moment, there is no authentication in the front end, and that's what has allowed us to keep those two things separate. So although there's authentication in the back end for the people managing that content, the front end there is some authentication, but it's not linked to the back end at the moment. And that's something. This is just a prototype. It was just made as a demo to get further funding for it. So it's that authentication probably isn't quite so important at the moment, as we don't have customers there. It's not going out and customer facing just yet. So that's basically how it's set up. Every API has got its own Lambda function. So this is there's a direct link between each API and each Lambda function. So the sorts of things that are concerns at the moment are these green faces are marked on there because these are where we can put students, we can deploy students to write something that is useful. So I can very easily give a Lambda function to a student, and there's a lot that they can do, a lot of things that they know, and really useful learning and stuff that they can actually get working, test, and make sure that it's working really well. In the React app, there are JavaScript functions, and we had students writing JavaScript functions that Alex could then grab and put into the React app. And the better we can specify those functions so that they are literally just taking a set of data and giving back another set of data, the easier they should be to put in. So that's the way that it's done at the moment. But you notice that only two parts of that are useful for students. This Django app, lots of configuration, and brilliant that you can spin it up quickly and it can do everything that it needs to do, but it doesn't really have the scope to allow students to do it. There's too much setting up and too much code around what they need to be doing. So it doesn't give us really a lot of value in terms of what it is we're actually trying to do with this. Can everyone hear me all right? Yeah, okay, excellent. Just suddenly thought I might have been on mute all this time. So this is where I want the next phase of this project to go. So Steve is out trying to raise funds to get to the next stage of this. So we've got the demo that's there, and he's using that to go out to raise funds so that we can get moved to the next stage. And this is where I would very much like it to go. Same sort of idea, that we've got an uncoupled front end and back office, but instead of the Django app, what I want to do is to move that the management part to its own S3 bucket, and to host that as a React app as well. So we'll end up with 2 independent React apps, both talking to an API gateway, but because this one's now becoming a React app, this one will now be talking to the same APIs as the front end. So the APIs will be connected to a set of Lambda functions that we host as a little microservice, which I'm calling the content microservice, which is a set of functions for doing all of that content management stuff, all talking to that database. And they will also both be connected to an authentication service, also a Lambda function written in Python, but separate from the content management. And these two can talk to each other through, I think, I haven't looked into this hugely yet, but the Simple Queue service on AWS is a messaging service that will allow these two to send messages to each other to check whenever something asked for content that person is authenticated to get that. I'm doing this as part, so I work 2 days a week as a software developer for a company called Navigator Productions. It's an online learning platform, and we're working with Azure, and Azure has a service bus, which I think is not exactly the same, but is a similar sort of idea. The fact that you can send messages and the messages get queued, and you can either subscribe or receive a message. So this is the idea, and this is what we're going to be working towards in the next phase of this. Now the advantage of this is I've now got 4 little phases here, because I've got opportunities for JavaScript functions being written in 2 separate apps. And I've got the opportunity to write Python functions in these microservices. So I've got, again, a separate set of systems for providing access to those students to do the stuff that they need to do. So this is the way that I'd like to move forward. The other thing that I'm looking at introducing, and again, I'm doing this in my other role as a developer for Navigator. I'm just currently writing stuff that's using GraphQL, and I've just finished my first little app that's using GraphQL. The reason for that is that a Lambda function is possibly going to be creating data or returning data from the database to either one of these 2 apps at the front end, and depending on which app it is, the information that they need could well be different. And what we don't want to do is to do what we are doing currently, and that is to kind of send the whole thing across the network to the front end. So GraphQL is a means of being asked not only to go and grab these particular records from the database, but return these particular fields, so that when you are getting the result from the API, you're just getting a result that is, exactly what you want. So that's kind of where we are now and where we're trying to go with it. I was going to show you sort of stuff that's going to come up in the future, but I think I'll probably leave that for now. I'll just give you a quick look at the API, at the app that Alex built for us. It's full of test data, so we've got customers in here twice. Basically, what we've got is a front end that you look at. Which is where everybody can get to. You've got various customers, all of the customers that have provided content are across the bottom here. So that's Portsmouth Football Club have created a load of videos, or that have allowed a load of videos to be created. Click on a customer, it gives you the opportunity to register that sends a message off to the customer and allows them to give you a link, and the link might be something like this. That allows you then to go into a login screen. So you're going in as a particular user. You can, oh no, I can't do that on this one. It's got a very primitive system for logging in, and then when you log in, you're delivered your content that you can see on the screen. Any user, so this is somebody who's experiencing this content, they can look at a video. This one's a virtual tour. If they want to add more, they will have been given a set of content. So this one's been given one virtual tour. They've been given, I think, 3 video experiences that they can choose from. They can add these ones to their dashboard. They can remove these from their dashboard. At the moment, this one hasn't got any augmented experiences or any virtual reality experiences, but those things could be added later. These little ducks, where Steve specifically did want these in for their user to be able to say, I really need some help, or yeah, this content was brilliant, it's really helped me. And that allows the supporter to be able to kind of put them into, to give them help when they need it. We've got a little calming screen that they can go to. So if it gets too overwhelming, too much, they can go to that and then they can come back. So that's kind of basically what the app does. And that's it. And this diagram really is how it's built. And that's basically what the talk wanted. What I wanted the talk to be about was about this, the architecture of this particular app and why we use it that way, because I think our needs are slightly different to most commercial development companies, because of the way that we need it to be teaching these young people, as well as allowing them to actually develop. So I'm going to stop there. This next bit was really about, we've got some really, really exciting projects, and I just actually wanted to say this one. We've got, I've been talking to the Institute of Construction Management, and they want to set up, there's a guy there who wants to write a digital identification system so that people in the construction industry can get accredited, and that can go through to a kind of a digital passport system. The idea being that eventually you couldn't work on a building site unless you had a passport. And this is a brilliant system, and he wants our students to be working with him. So we're looking for funding to get into that. And then we've got this exciting augmented reality app for an arts centre, where we can get like 3D fairies come up, because you scanned we're using fiducial markers that you scan and get these little fairies that you can keep in your app. So the stuff that we get is really exciting. But coming up with a kind of a solution that works for these really exciting apps, but also for the students, is our biggest challenge, I think. So thank you for listening. I'm going to stop there just in case there are any questions, so we can still finish at 9. And I think I'll stop sharing my screen now. Is that right, Alex? Yeah.
I actually did want to thank you so much. I was really staring at that silently. So I was just going to say, so someone put a question in the comments, and it kind of links in with something actually. So I'm kind of sort of asking a question, but more prompted because I know the answer. Because I mentioned about
having you and Maggie there is quite useful, isn't it?
Yeah, it was about the colours. They were sort of saying the colour scheme, and it reminded me of, it's something we're doing for the next phase, I believe, with the users. Yeah, I just wondered if you mind, probably worth telling them about that idea with the colour scheme.
So a customer, so there are 3 types of user. There's a customer, a supporter, and a viewer. A customer is the creator of the content, and the people who can take on a user and provide them with that link and take them on and register them as a user. That customer, we're storing a kind of a set of CSS styles for that customer, so that certain things on the site will change depending on which customer you're registered to. So that's stored with the customer record. So it's we got one of the students built a little function that would take a set of custom CSS styles and create a style sheet, so that was then stored. So when the customer signs up, that style sheet's created, and then that's stored so that you can just link to the style sheet, so it doesn't have to rebuild it each time. or keep referring back. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, kind of. I think, because it was more saying that the current colour scheme wouldn't be very good for colourblind people, basically. I was thinking, oh, well, that was kind of why that colour scheme in particular wasn't kind of a focus, because the next stage is going to be, it's dependent on them. So I think that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, so the colour scheme, that was actually, so Steve got some money for this. So obviously he was able to fund our project, but the first bit of money went to a design consultancy, and that colour scheme is what they came up with.
Oh, I
So
didn't know
that's what we worked. That's what we worked with.
Yeah. So are you happy for people to just shout at you, Karen?
Yeah, I'm quite happy if you want to shout. Yeah.
Karen, it's Ricardo here. It's really, really great architecture and a really good walkthrough. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
When you're working with the students and the developers, are you all doing the work through and teaching them how to use source control and branching and merging and all that kind of stuff, so they get to see how collaborative development works?
Yes. Yeah. So we use GitLab. So, and obviously they're all using Git. I set up a project. Whenever they've got an issue, so we use GitLab because you've got the project management stuff in there. We assign them issues. Whenever they've got an issue, they will create a branch that matches that issue. They'll check out the branch, and then they'll check that back in, and then they have their code reviewed, and then we'll merge it.
Nice.
Some code doesn't get, well, a lot of code doesn't get merged, mainly because what we try not to do is we try not to give them the whole Django app or the whole React app, so that then they're kind of bogged down with all of that stuff. So we'll give them a branch, they'll create the tests, and they'll create the function, and then they will push that, and then we can pick that up from there and merge it manually.
Okay. And in the new architecture, when you're using GraphQL, okay, is there a reason why you're sticking with RDS rather than using something like DynamoDB, which might work, for more like CMS type situations?
Yes, and it's actually because I haven't used it, so that's the only reason.
Right. I think it's a lot cheaper as well. It'll be a lot cheaper if you go that way as well.
Yes. Yeah, and it's something I think need to engage with, but you can, as you probably imagine, I do this 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week I'm working elsewhere. The actual getting the time to do this is always quite difficult. But yeah, I'm totally aware that we need to be a little bit more aware of other systems.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, you guys gonna also get into sort of teaching continuous integration and stuff like that? Like, you're using GitLab, and I know like the latest version's they've done quite a lot of work with the whole kind of automation workflows and like deployment workflows and stuff like that, or does that kind of sort of just step a bit too far into industry for the kind of?
It's obviously 3 months. 3 months of 1.5 days a week is quite short.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I think ideally, yes, we want them to experience the whole thing. So the main things that we focus on are pair programming, test-driven development, source control, and communication, because it's obviously a really difficult one. In order to do the continuous integration, I think I need to be happy with it. Whenever we've got developers coming in, every developer brings something new into the project and something that we can learn. But I always have to be a little bit mindful of, if that developer then goes, I'm left with that and don't necessarily understand it. So I think the barrier to that at the moment is, as soon as I can get my head around it and I can feel confident about it, then I think we would put it in.
Cool.
So that's something I think we should be doing anyway.
Well, another question, that popped up on the chat was, are you always looking for volunteers to help with coding or mentoring?
Yes. We are always looking for volunteers. Maggie's absolutely brilliant. We've had other people come in, haven't we, Maggie? That have sort of come along and helped for a while and then gone. But yeah, we're always looking for volunteers. There's volunteers who want to just come and mentor. That's really, really important. It really makes such a difference to the young people that work with us if they've got good role models and they are working with professionals. So that's one side of the volunteering. We also need volunteers occasionally for things that we just can't get our heads around, or if there's something that's specific, quite specialist. I mean, this blockchain project's really, really exciting, but it's a bit scary as well, because it's not something I've actually sort of done before. So we're always looking for those two sides to it, the mentoring side and the experience and the expertise that someone can bring to a project. And on that,
and how do you join? Sorry.
Go through it, Ricardo.
Yeah,
sorry,
Glenn, you're on.
How do you actually get in touch with you to volunteer if you did want to, let's say?
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to type my I'm going to type my email address in the chat. So yes, if anyone feels that they would like to volunteer, that would be absolutely fantastic. We don't have projects on all the time, but we're aiming to have projects on as much as we possibly can. The other thing that we will be looking for volunteers for is Maggie and I have been talking about starting up we're going to call it Code Cafe, aren't we? So along the lines of Code Bar, but inclusive for everyone. Because I think I totally agree with what Code Bar is doing, but Code Bar is it's got a certain set of people who are eligible for Code Bar, and I think just probably about one set of people who aren't eligible, and that's sort of probably most of the software development community aren't necessarily eligible to actually go and be learners. But
sorry, Karen, someone's asked what is Code Bar doing? Would you mind kind of explaining?
Oh, so Code Bar is for minority groups. It's for females, who I don't think are a minority, but it's for females, and other minority groups. So it's basically anyone who falls into a group that's underrepresented in the software industry. So the idea is it is a brilliant idea. I totally agree with what they're trying to do. The idea is to try to encourage more people who perhaps would have less confidence to get together to learn. And the idea is that you have an evening that you set aside. People come along. They bring something that they want to learn. So it might be I've never programmed before. I want to learn Python. I want to learn JavaScript. I want to learn HTML, CSS, that sort of thing. Or I've learned some already and I want to do a project, and I'm going to bring my project along and work on it. And if I'm going to bring along little problems that I've got stuck with, and hopefully somebody will be there that we can talk it through. So you've got people coming along for that reason. Then you've got other people who are coming along to help other people. So they're coming along to mentor. So I've volunteered there as a mentor. I think Maggie, you've done that as well, haven't you? Have you?
No, not yet. Because Tonbridge is really hard to get to.
Okay. Yeah, one of the problems with Code Bar is that it's well, as in any meetup, you've got to put it somewhere physically. You've got to put it somewhere, and in Kent, that makes it quite difficult for some people to get to it. In the current climate, obviously, we've got to do everything online, and we thought now would be quite a good time to think about starting this up. So we were going to call it Code Cafe, and the idea is that we would twice a week have a 2-hour session, and in that 2-hour session, a certain number of people, we'd have to limit it to make sure that we can cope with it, would come along to that session with a wish to do some programming in that session. And in that session, you can all have a meeting, you can all introduce yourselves, and then there'll be different, we're planning to do it on Slack and just go into different channels, so that you could go into the Python channel and there will be other people in the Python channel, and you could have a little video conference there. Somebody else might go into the JavaScript channel, and you've got all the people that want to do JavaScript. You might have one where the people are in there because they've got their own projects. So the idea would be that you just spend those 2 hours just programming. Maybe you're just programming while other people are just there, but sometimes you're asking questions and sometimes you're answering questions. But you're basically sort of there to support each other. Do you think that explains it properly, Maggie? So we will be looking for people to come and join that, and we'll also be looking for volunteers to be there, so that when people get stuck, we've got helpers. So if you're interested in either of those things, then yes, please get in touch with me, and we'll try and get you doing something that you feel that you want to do and that you feel it's a bit rewarding.
Thank you. So just a quick thing.
That includes you, Alex.
Sorry?
I said that includes you.
I've got a quick question. Just not a question exactly. Because I don't quite know how the recordings work on here yet. Would you mind saying out loud the email address just in case someone watches it and doesn't see the chat? So what's your
okay. It's Karen, Karen, at futurecoders, all one word, .org.uk.
Thank you. I think somebody else had a question. Was it you? I can't remember who went.
Glenn.
Both had questions, but I don't know who went. When have you still got
it? Yeah, it was me, but I can't actually remember what I was going to ask. It wasn't a really outstanding question at all, I don't think, but I can't remember what it was now. I think you might have touched upon the answer anyway at some point, so it's gone out of my head.
Sorry, I just read Aaron's comment.
What do you think, Glenn? Karen, I saw yesterday there was a press release that there was a consortium of we're a recruitment group, and there's a consortium of recruitment companies that are building a blockchain to store gig economy worker qualifications and experience so that they can be transferred across agencies. So at the moment it's quite difficult to you have to go through a whole set of compliance and rigmarole every time you switch job.
Mm-hmm.
So that was done with the WEC, the Worldwide Employment Confederation, and Adecco, Manpower Group, Randstad and Kelly Services. Suppose for your construction client that might be quite interesting. Maybe that project could join that bigger project together or something. Maybe there would be some funding there. I don't know.
Yes. Well, that's really useful. Would you be able to?
I'll send you the press release. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries.
Similar, Karen. I used to work for PwC, and they've just launched a thing called Smart Contract, which is for education. So the idea is that when you get educational certificates or you pass an exam, they're creating a blockchain that allows employers and educational institutes to validate that you have taken a certain exam or got a particular achievement.
Oh, wow. That's very similar.
Yeah, so I know the guys that wrote it at PwC, so I can introduce you to them if you want.
Oh, thank you. I have to get
I mean,
back
as well as
to
Davos this year, I think Davos Workday, who are a big HR software company, said that they were also implementing a similar initiative into their software. So if construction companies are also using Workday as a platform, it might work quite well with that.
Okay. That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, I noticed today there was a call. Actually, I don't know how many of you seen it, but there was a call for developers to work on a digital passport or a digital. I think it was a digital passport for people who've been tested for the antibodies for coronavirus. They want to have some sort of way of digitally recording that and verifying that so that people can go back to work. And they're definitely they're calling for developers to work on that at the moment. I saw that earlier today.
You see that? That sounds really interesting.
Where did I see it? It was on the digital skills. So I sit on the Digital Skills Partnership, which is a big sort of southeast wide group to try to promote the increase of digital skills or the improvement of digital skills across that area, and it was on their website. That's where I saw it.
After I'm going to talk to you about that after. I won't keep everyone, but that sounds really interesting. I'd be kind of curious to see if I could get involved with something like that.
Yeah, they were looking for particular types of development. So I'll show you where it is.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions, comments? Help? We're all kind of just helping each other out. Quite nice. Anyone?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Karen, me and a lot of my friends come out of school with like really no idea what we wanted to do. So I think that what you're doing is really important, and there definitely needs to be more of it. Because like a lot of me and my friends, we had like career advice, but it was very bare and didn't really give you any kind of trying to figure the words for it. Didn't kind of give you an indication of like what would be tailored to your skills or what you're interested in. It was more a matter of kind of just flat information as opposed to kind of looking at your interests and stuff and pushing it that way. So yeah, I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you.
Definitely needs to be more of it.
Yeah.
I would like to say something that, like I said, Karen taught me to code when I was at college, so I was really lucky that I actually had her teaching me, and was there at the point when I was then able to go to uni, and I kind of had that, you know, I learned from you at the right time. And I kind of in my head thought, oh, everyone's had that luxury, and it wasn't until I think we had a conversation last time I was at the co-working space with you, where I think you said actually most people that you taught have gone to uni and actually were more skilled than they needed to be in a way, because it's just not taught really as practically as you taught it. But I think is insane. I don't understand how you couldn't teach it the way you did, because yeah, I think sorry, I thought it was really good. That's just my 2 cents.
I think those of us that were lucky enough, I mean, I kind of got into programming by accident in the 80s. I was taught originally by my dad, just because that's what he loved to do. He was an engineer, and when computers were becoming available, that was the first thing he did, is he went out and got one and he learned to program it. And he taught me to program. And I think if you haven't got that person there that is going to teach you that, then you're gonna miss out, and you're never going to know. So as you were saying, John, you won't necessarily know that that's something that you would want to do, because you've just never had the opportunity to.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like a lot of the fact that you don't necessarily get a lot of exposure to different stuff. And I know for me, I quite a lot of the time I'll get the sense of not being able to do something, and I know like loads of times throughout my career, there's loads of things that I thought I'm not going to be able to do this. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. And then a year or so later, I'm like, gee, that's all done now.
Yes. Yeah, it all changes so quickly, doesn't it? And it is you do. It's difficult to have confidence in what you are doing, because you feel like you're constantly learning.
Well, this is the thing, especially in I guess in technology, like everything's always changing, so you're always effectively going to be a student.
Yeah. And that's actually a really important part of what we have to do in our project teams. They all start on a learning program. However good they are when they started, it's a case of none of them have learned testing. None of them know how to test. Often they don't really think about, or don't know how to stop and think about what they're doing before they start. And they don't know necessarily how to search when they've got stuck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't know how to find the resources.
Yeah, so sometimes so one of them's stuck, and I'll say, see if you can look up something online, and they'll be there for ages, and they'll have typed stuff in, and they say I can't find anything, and I say, well, let's have a look, and I'll type something in, and I'll come up with a website, and I say, well, have a look at this. I'll put the link on there. How did you find that? And it's being able to do the right searching, and being able to be effective in terms of how you deal with that information.
I think that's one of the pitfalls of traditional learning, is that they supply you with all the information, but they don't teach you how to be resourceful.
Yes. Yeah, and that's an important thing to learn, isn't it? Especially in software, because you are going to be learning constantly.
Literally every job I've had is just, here you go, on you go. So you don't really have a choice in those circumstances.
Yeah, and faced with that situation, most kids would just flounder when they get out. Because how would they know what to do? How would they be able to move forwards?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's
Fair, Karen. at the start of this, you did actually say communication is important, and I think that is a part of the communication skill is like how to look things up and who to speak to, how to actually articulate the question to get the right answer.
Yes.
So that is important.
And actually knowing when to ask as well.
Yeah.
We've had to try to impose a kind of standard practice that if you are able to notice that if for the last 15 minutes you haven't moved on at all, then at that point it's just a good point to just say, this is what I'm working on. Because at that point somebody else could just chip up and say, actually, yeah, I'm working on that, or I'm stuck on that at the moment. And there might be a few more hints there, but that getting bogged down and constantly trying to search and spending all day trying to find something is another thing that they need to learn.
Yeah, I'm particularly bad at that. It's one of those things where I've got a problem in front of me and I'm like, this is not going to beat me.
Yes. It can't be that hard.
Digging in and digging in and digging in. Yeah.
And 3 hours later, he's still stuck.
Yeah, and you're like, geez, where did our time go?
And a lot of the time, all you need to do is to tell somebody what that problem is, and all of a sudden the answer just pops into your head, doesn't it? It's not. It's
that
just
situation where you wake up the next day and you're like, how did I not think of it?
Yes.
That span
you
of
were
time.
so bogged down in it. Yeah.
I made a rule about a year ago that was don't try and code after like 1 in the morning because it just doesn't work. Once my coach tried coding like 4 or 5 hours, went to my work the next day and was like, oh, I missed a semicolon. Yeah, of course I did. Just not notice it. Complete waste of time. But yeah, stuff like that you kind of feel like you want to just. I feel like we don't bother. Do not waste your time. You're not going to do anything productive after midnight.
Yeah.
You just kind of like zone in. And if you're not in the kind of state of mind to be able to really focus in on what you're doing, it's just like completely wasted time.
Erin says also don't code drunk.
I've not tried that yet.
Bye. Oh my god. So we've got any more questions, comments? Or I feel like we're probably near the end anyway, but anything else anyone wants to drop in before we stop?
No, just say thank you.
Right, I think, well, okay, we will wrap it up there, guys. Just do a quick outro. So thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for giving us your time. That was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we'll get you in again later when we get the next stage.
Or something else to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully my code will work as well. Fingers crossed. So just a quick little closing up. So thank you to Karen Scott and Erin Taylor, who I believe has left already.
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, all of you guys for logging in. And just to say, so our next event, as you guys probably guessed, the next few events are all going to be remote. So I have changed all the meetups now. The next event is on the, is that right? Are we in April? We're already in April, aren't we? Yeah, so the next event is the 6th of May. God, that feels insane. It's already April. But yeah, the next event is going to be the 6th of May. I have changed the timings on it. So yeah, people don't really need to log in really until about 7:20. But it is open from 7, so you can. But the link is there so everyone can log in. Our talks are going to be a brief overview of the history and practice of user experience by Ian Westbrook and spatial graphs and analysis using R by Ulrich Neumann. Just checking I've done that right. Yeah. Sorry, horrible image that I copied and pasted the wrong one. No, that's right. That's the one. So that is our event next month. Yeah, so next month and then June as well is going to be on Zoom. If anyone is interested in giving a talk, my next few ones are booked up, but I've got slots still for July onwards. So if anyone's interested, please give me a shout. If not, I look forward to seeing you all next month. All right, thanks, guys.
See you later.
Alex.
Bye.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Karen.
Bye-bye.